All right, let's talk a little bit of Nebraska football. Potential special teams coordinators, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what I've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 potential names. And I'm going to highlight the ones that stand out to me the most. All right, so right off the top, this is an individual that if we could get him, and he's available, like he's like the punters and kickers coach, okay, let me make sure I got this right. His name is Sean Snider, son of former Kansas State football head coach Bill Snider. He was an All-American punter at the University of Kansas State. Right now, he is the kickers and punters coach for the Oklahoma State program. When he was at Kansas State, he was one of the best special teams coordinators that there was. He won the special teams coordinator of the year in 2015, 2017. So he's helping with punters and kickers, but I guarantee if Nebraska picked up the phone, said, hey, you want to come be our special teams coordinator? By the way, we got a little bit of moolah. Matt Rule, he's not on the hot seat, but it's getting warm. Like, come here. We want you here. This is a guy that is an established special teams coordinator. This is a guy who has had successful special teams consistently over the years. All right. He's had teams that have ranked third nationally, not in the conference, third nationally in kickoff coverage. He's had players that have set conference records, okay, as far as return men, punt return yards, kick return yards. He's had the Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week. The last 4 weeks that he was at Kansas State, he had the Special Teams Player of the Week when he was with the Wildcats. Okay, so this is a guy that I think would be a home run hire. This is an individual that if he got a phone call from Nebraska, I don't know why he wouldn't be interested. All right, so that's the first guy I'm going to mention. Next, I just had a phone call with Sam Cook. So actually, Sam Cook, former Husker from Seward, former teammate of mine, played 16 years in the NFL. He's currently a special teams consultant for the Ravens. His son is a punter here for Nebraska right now. I was like, you know what? I ain't talked to Sam since actually last time I interviewed him on the ticket. And when I looked at the text, it was 2023. So it's been about 2 years, a little too long. So I picked up the phone, I called him, and I was like, oh, man, they're in like getting ready for the playoffs. He's probably a little busy. So I shot him a text. Hey, just give me a chat or a shout whenever you're free to chat for like 2 minutes. He calls me like within 5 minutes. He's heading into a special teams meeting. I just asked him. So there's certain things that I will share anything that anybody is comfortable with me sharing. I will not share anything that anybody's not comfortable with me sharing, and I will not apologize for that. I will not put stuff out there just for the sake of being the guy that knows this or that or trying to gain headlines. That is not how I'm going to operate. But if somebody's comfortable with me sharing something, I'll share it. Sam, I spoke with him on the phone. I just asked him. I said, have you spoke with Matt Rule? Have you spoke with Nebraska? Not even about being the special teams coordinator, but just about an analyst or any sort of role here at University of Nebraska. And he said, no, not to this point. So while I think Sam would be a phenomenal addition, even if he was just an analyst, and he's from Seward, he's an alumnus here, obviously. I'm sure he'd be interested in potentially coming home, so to speak, although he was in Baltimore for almost 20 years now, if you include his special teams consultant career that he's had, or analyst career that he's had there with the Ravens. I'm sure he'd be interested. But there's been no conversations there at all, at least to this point. So I was a little bit disappointed to hear that, because I think he would have been a great option. I don't know whether the full-blown special teams coordinator or at least helping in the special teams in some way, shape, or form. But that does not seem likely unless the phone rings at some point this week. But I would imagine it would have already rang at some point, unless they hire a special teams coordinator and then that guy calls Sam to be brought in some sort of special teams type role. All right, the name that's being thrown around a lot, and I can see why, Mike Eckler. This is an individual who is Tennessee's special teams coordinator right now. He's considered one of the top 5 special teams coordinators in the entire country. All right, he's in his 4th season being their special teams coordinator and outside linebackers coach, former Nebraska coach, born and raised in this great state of Nebraska. He was the linebackers coach under good old Bo Pelini, 08 to 2010. All right, this is an individual. Let me see if I can get this all correctly here, because this would be, top 5 in the country. You know, that's where he's rated if you look at some of these rankings. Okay, that'd be a home run hire, I believe, as well. But when you read some of the things that are written, perhaps no special teams unit in the country made as significant a jump as Tennessee under the direction of Eckler when he was hired back in 2021. All right. They finished in the FBS top 20 in 5 different special teams categories, including block punt, kickoff return, net punting, punt return defense, and punt return average. By the way, we averaged 4.7 yards per punt return last year. We need a gargantuan amount of help there. So this is an individual who could be perfectly happy where he is. He's at Tennessee. They were a playoff team. They're an SEC title contending team year in and year out. A lot of stability under Josh Heupel. Maybe he doesn't want to go. But he does have ties to Nebraska. I just laid him out. So there could be potential interest there for sure if that phone call is made. And one of the thoughts that occurred to me, like, oh man, does anybody want to leave the overrated FCC? Well, first of all, apparently people do, because the co-defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, by the way, Oklahoma's strength, as bad as that team was, 6-7, lost to Navy, mollywopped Alabama, just going to bring that up again because that's always fun to say. The defense was the strength of their team. They were top 20 in just about every statistical category on defense, and there wasn't a stat on defense that they were below top 30. All right, they were the 19th ranked total defense in the country last year, and their offense stunk. And they were bad, and they were not good on offense. But the defense was good. So the co-defensive coordinator at Oklahoma leaves to go to West Virginia, a Big 12 school? I thought that was quite telling. Maybe the grass isn't as green in the Southeast as some people might think. Now, to be clear, I respect the SEC. Over the past 20 years, if you want to make an argument that they're the best conference in college football, there's an argument to be made. I would counter-argue that they're top-heavy. So you can throw all the national championships at me if you want. Let's talk about the middle to lower tier of that conference, which is what I've always said. They're top-heavy. And they get all these ranked wins because in the preseason, they're ranked highly by the voters who are connected to ESPN, who have a deal with the SEC, and then you get all these ranked wins, which was already kind of predetermined based on your schedule before you ever step foot on the field. All you had to do was win. Then you look at what happened this bowl season, you look what happens in the playoff, and all of a sudden you got Tennessee getting mollywopped. You got Georgia. It was a competitive game, but Notre Dame was clearly the better team. I mean, it was clear as day. So the SEC is good, but they're not what they once were. Last year, well, 2 seasons ago now, the Pac-12 was the best conference in America. This year, right now, it's the Big Ten. We had the best regular season team in the country with Oregon, probably the best team in the country, or hottest team at least, with Ohio State. You got 2 of the 4 final teams left in the college football playoff. We had the most amount of top 10 ranked teams, if you want to go by rankings, to most amount of top 5 teams, if you want to do that. It was the Big Ten. So anyways, I digress. Let's get back to Nebraska's special teams coordinator. My point is, it may not be so far-fetched if Mike Eckler gets a call from Matt Rule that his ears might be wide open to come back to Nebraska, but the numbers got to be right. I will say this. Nebraska's not hurting for money, all right? They are the 8th most profitable in the entire country when it comes to their sports programs. It literally just came out within the past week. They were number 8 in the country as far as turning a profit with their sports programs. And there was a lot of zeros and commas in that article that I read as well. So this could be a good possibility. All right, I'm going to bring him up because he's the name that everyone wants to hear, Bill Busch. Now, I'll tell you right now, I don't think it's going to happen. I would love it. He's a phenomenal coach. He's shown he can do it as a special teams coordinator, defensive coordinator, as a radio show co-host. He's shown he can do it at multiple places. Played in coached in national championship games, coached on national championship winning teams, coached high draft picks. He did it here as a D coordinator. He did it here as a special teams coordinator. And when I say he did it, he turned around bad units. I know enough to know that it's probably not going to happen. Another guy I'd like to bring up, let's see here, Brian Haynes, Appalachian State. Now, this is a guy, if you do some research, he's considered one of the top 15 special teams coaches in the country, probably number 11, is according to the specific list that I looked at. If you did an average of, hey, he's here and here, and you do an average, it came out to about 11. All right. He has been named a candidate for the Broyles Award that goes to the nation's top assistant. He's had All-America type kick returners. All right. Let's see. They were 16th nationally, App State was, just a couple of years ago, in the overall special teams department when you averaged out their kickoff return, kickoff, punt return, field goal efficiency rating. So he's been consistently good. Now, I'm not going to sit here at this point in time, and other than Sam and maybe a couple other guys that I've alluded to, say that I know who has been called and who has not. I will simply say these are the candidates that stick out to me based on the knowledge I have, based on their credentials, based on who might be available. There could be someone that I don't bring up that becomes a top candidate that gets brought in. My gut says it's going to be one of these guys that I'm talking about today, but I can't sit here and say definitively that I know for sure. But the odds are trending towards the things that I'm talking about today. So this is let me see here. Under Haynes' watch, special teams consistently ranked as one of the best in both the FCS and conference in kickoff, punt return, punt defense. Okay. And so he's had a lot of success. He's a guy that's at a good school at App State, but if Nebraska comes calling, we probably have a pretty good chance. Andy LaRussa. This is the special teams coordinator at Western Kentucky. On the special teams side, he's had one of the top punters, averaged nearly 50 yards a punt. Their net punting is amongst the tops in the country. Second best, just had their second best punting season in Western Kentucky 102-year football history. He is a coach who has coached tight ends. He's coached running backs, but also special teams as well. He's always done special teams, usually paired with something else. But if he came here, he would specifically be geared towards the special teams. All right, so that's a guy that's you can keep your eye on a little bit. The next guy I'm about to mention would be great. He has been at San Diego State for 17 years, not necessarily all as a coach. He's been there as a player, as a GA. Okay, but his special teams units have had a lot of success. All right, efficiency ranking at a 66, which is amongst the tops in the country. He's had coach punters and kickers on the Lou Groza, which is a top kicker. Ray Guy Award finalist, which is the top punter in America. All right. His special teams ranked second in FBS and ESPN special teams overall efficiency rating. That's the second consecutive season in the top 5. So number 2 in the entire country, second in the second consecutive season being in the top 5 when it comes to overall special teams ratings. Let's see. Who else do I got here? I've heard LeVar Woods, which is the Iowa special teams coordinator, which at first I was kind of like, huh? But I don't know. USC stole UCLA's defensive coordinator, Danton Lynn. So you never know what can happen. Maybe Nebraska, and he's considered to be either the best or the second best special teams coordinator in the country. So LeVar Woods, which is Iowa's special teams coordinator, I don't know if I said that, but Iowa's special teams coordinator. He's a former Hawkeye linebacker, so he's probably got a whole bunch of, loyalty to Iowa, I suppose. But you never know. The almighty dollar can speak. I mean, Lincoln Riley up and left Oklahoma overnight. Brian Kelly up and leaves Notre Dame overnight. By the way, how does that decision look now? Marcus Freeman looks like a rock star at the moment. Can't win. Can't beat SEC teams with Notre Dame. Oh, wait. Notre Dame just beat the SEC champ with your former defensive coordinator, Mr. Kelly. So you never know what can happen. That one seems a little far-fetched, but it would be a home run, potentially. All right, Mark Scott, Baylor, a quality control special teams coach for Baylor in 2024. Now, here's what's intriguing about him. Other than I can go through all the stats. Again, he's had a ton of success with special teams over the years. But the connection is to Dana Holgorsen. He's coached under him at West Virginia and at Houston. Every single guy that I mentioned would be a really good coach. Like we're talking top 15 special teams coordinator in the country. The ones that stand out to me as being a little bit more likely. Okay, again, Sean Snider, which he was the associate head coach and special teams coordinator at Kansas State. Now he's the punter and kicker coach at Oklahoma State. All right, that might be likely. Mike Eckler, the Tennessee special teams coordinator. Mark Scott at Baylor. Those are probably the 3 that stick out to me the most. If I was to go beyond that to a top 5, Brian Haynes at App State and Andy LaRussa at Western Kentucky. Any thoughts on any of those guys, Jake?
Not just a lot of the stuff that sounds pretty good. Some of those guys, obviously, like you said, it might be tough to get a few of them, but you made me think for a second. Nebraska with Iowa special teams, and that gets you pretty excited because that would be quite a jump.
Talk about a Louisville Slugger to the groin of the Hawkeyes. That alone would make me happy.
Yeah.
We'd be getting one of the best special teams coordinators in America. All right, real quick before we head to break here, I think I mentioned this. Jalen Lloyd at Oklahoma State. You probably know by now, but we landed another transfer portal DB. Am I saying this right? Jameer Khan?
I believe so.
It always makes me think of Shakir Khan from the Jungle Book, Mowgli. I love that. 6 foot, 180 pounds, recorded 59 tackles, 6 pass deflections last season, had a Pro Football Focus grade of 74.5. A former player under Jamar Mosey, whose pipeline of recruiting has just been phenomenal for Nebraska. All right, has 2 years of eligibility. We were able to flip him from James Madison. Jalen Gramstad will be back next year. Got a 6-year of eligibility. So we got Dylan. What's the Purdue quarterback's name? Can you?
Marcos Davia.
We got him as a potential backup. We got TJ Lateef. We got Gramstad. We got a 4-deep quarterback room and a quarterback that's a starter now with experience. No longer am I going to say teenager or true freshman. All right. Now we got an experienced quarterback.